What's up, y'all? Drew back again with Princess Craft RV, and today we're going to be taking a look at the features and functionality of the 2024 Little Guy by XTreme Outdoors. So starting right up front here, as we do, we are going to take a look at the loading and unloading process. The unit here is going to ride on a 2-inch ball. The idea being is we are going to start with the tongue jack and the coupler slightly above our 2-inch ball. We will back underneath the coupler, centering our ball underneath. We're again going to go to the electric tongue jack and lower that coupler down on top of the ball. Once we've done so, we're going to take our coupler back here, making sure that we are fully latched in here to the bottom plate, and that's going to keep everything nice and secure. What we're going to want to do here is come back and either pin this with either a spring pin or a locking variant, a hitch pin or coupler pin, excuse me. Keep that from potentially becoming disengaged going down the road. After we're connected there, we can go ahead and run our tongue jack fully up into the stowed position. We're then going to go ahead and take our tow chains, which happen to be wrapped up on us now. So we will take our our tow chains, cross those underneath the coupler here. Making sure that we do have enough room to make our turns left or right, but not so much room that these may drag on the ground. So it's illegal in the state of Texas for these chains to make contact with the pavement at any time. Also, it's state law that they do need to be crossed underneath the coupler. Next up, we have our 7-way wiring here. This is going to plug into the corresponding bumper receptacle of your vehicle. This little piece of plastic that sticks out will be in the 12 o'clock position. When we are fully inserted into the bumper receptacle, the lid's going to come down and keep that plug from potentially being disengaged going down the road. Same thing with the 7-way cord here is that we do want to, again, make sure that we have enough room to make our turns left or right, but not so much room that this may drag on the ground. The 7-way plug is going to give you full function to your tow vehicle's braking system, charging system, as well as control over the marker lights, tail lights, things like that. A little further back, we have a very important safety feature. This is going to be our emergency breakaway. This one you can see they still have it zip tied from the manufacturer, but when this is unwound, we're going to take this little hoop here and we're going to use a quick link or a carabiner to hook that separate onto the receiver tow chain hooks. So a lot of people will run this through the tow chains. We want to make sure that this is free of the tow chains on a separate connection on the receiver. Coming back up here to talk a little bit further more about our electric tongue jack. The first switch we're going to find on there is going to be a light. That's going to light up this space if we are doing any loading and unloading after dark. Also is great to give you a point of reference if you are trying to back up to the unit at night. Above that, we have our extend and retract button. So nothing too crazy. It is a momentary switch. And then if we do encounter a power loss situation, we can go ahead and use the manual option. We'll go ahead and remove that plug. From there, we will take our manual crank handle, line that up with the drive nut inside, and then we can go ahead and load and unload the unit again if we have some sort of power loss situation. So moving a little further back here to the propane and battery compartments, you'll have a latch on each side. Once we go ahead and unlatch that, we'll have access. A standard 20-pound propane tank for you here will be full at time of delivery. To remove that tank for service, we're going to, of course, unscrew our propane pigtail here. Before doing so, making sure our service valve here is in the closed position. If we reach here to the other side of the tank, we'll see a little tension band that has a wing nut that we can loosen up, and that will allow us to go ahead and remove the tank for service. Now, right beside that, we have a Group 24 Interstate Deep Cycle battery. This is a lead acid battery. So the biggest thing with that to remember is we are going to want to get on a 90-day maintenance schedule. What we're going to do is remove these top panels. We're going to inspect the water level, make sure that that is going to be full, refilling with distilled water as necessary. So making our way here a little bit further down, we have a little sewage hose storage port. What you go ahead and do is you're just going to unlock this. That's going to open the door. It looks like the manufacturer has the door zip tied right now. This does run the width of the A-frame here. So just make sure that when you are storing a hose or purchasing a hose that you would like to store in here, just make sure that the size is going to be good for the container, excuse me. Next up, we have our stab jacks. So we have stab jacks on all four corners of the unit. These are for stabilization. They're not for leveling. If we're leveling front to back, we're going to use the tongue jack. And if we're leveling left to right, we're going to use the tires and a leveling kit. So once we are satisfied with our level, we're going to then run these down. Again, these are going to stabilize the suspension on the unit, keep it from feeling like you're walking around on a couple tires. So you don't need to go crazy with these. Again, they are just for stabilization. So we're going to come down, make contact with the pavement, maybe a quarter turn more. Same on the way up. We don't have to go crazy with it. Just make sure it's snug. It's not going to like work itself down or anything like that. Next up, we have our 6-gallon water heater. It is a Dometic brand and it is dual source. That means it can run on propane gas with 12-volt direct spark ignition, or we can go ahead and run it with the 110-volt electric outlet. Manufacturer Dometic has some very kind of specific recommendations when it comes to maintaining the appliance. With the unit in general, we're not going to want to keep water in it for more than 7 days. If we're storing it for more than 7 days, we need to drain all of the water from the system. So what that looks like is going to be, of course, draining the low point drains. We'll make sure we get eyes on those later on in the presentation. Draining the freshwater tank if it's been in use. And then lastly, we need to drain the water heater separate of the rest of the unit. So makes sense that this would be under immense pressure while heating water or, after heating water. So before we even want to think about draining the unit, we need to, number one, make sure that the temperature is at a working temperature, and then also depressurize the unit. So to depressurize the unit, we're going to make sure that we cut off the overall flow of water into the unit. So if we're hooked up to our city water connection, it's really important that we turn that off at the fixture. And if we are using our 12-volt water pump, we need to make sure that we turn that switch off. So once we've done so, we're going to go to the hot side of any spigot, whether that's going to be the outside shower, the bathroom, or the kitchen. We're going to open up the hot side of the spigot. That's going to depressurize the water heater here. Next up, we can come back out to the appliance. Now that we know that it's depressurized and that it's at a safe working temperature, we can use an 1 1/16 socket, ratchet, and extension to go ahead and remove our drain plug here. Now that is a nylon drain plug. That's a secondary safety feature from the manufacturer. The idea being is if your automatic pressure relief valve were to fail and the pressure within the unit became unsafe, it would overcome the threads here on this nylon plug and, depressurize that way. So it does void your warranty if you replace this nylon plug with anything other than a nylon plug. So the next thing you want to remember about the appliance is that when we are returning the unit back to service, we do have to prime or fill the water heater separate again of the rest of the system. So what we're going to do is we are, of course, going to introduce the overall flow of water to the unit. So again, if we are hooked up to city water, we're just going to go ahead and turn the water on at the valve. If we're using the 12-volt water pump, we just flip the switch into the on position. Once we've done that, we're going to again go to the hot side of any fixture. We're going to open that up. What we're going to see here is a little bit different than when we were draining the appliance. We're going to see a little bit of water coming out of the fixture, but mostly air. Of course, what we're doing is we are displacing the 6 gallons of the 6 gallons of air, which are now in the appliance, and replacing that with water. Generally, it takes about 5 minutes for that to work through. But once we see our flow normalize at the fixture, that's our indicator that the water heater is full of water, and we can then go ahead and choose our source again, whether that's going to be the propane or the electric heating element. Next up, we have our water sources here on the unit. The first one up is going to be our freshwater fill. Idea being that this is going to fill the onboard water tank. So what we're going to want to do is stick a garden hose directly in there. We're going to fill that up till it overflows. Once we've done so, we cap it off here. And there's nothing within the system to pressurize this other than the 12-volt water pump. So we do need to make sure that we do push that on or turn that on. That's going to draw the water up from the tank to the fixtures and make it usable. Next up, we have our city water connection here. City water is pressurized directly from the line. More often it is over pressurized for our needs. As you can see here by the sticker, we're looking for a max city pressure PSI of 50. What we're going to make sure that we do use is a water pressure regulator here. That's going to make sure that we do not exceed that 50 PSI max recommendation. Down below that, we have our cable satellite inlet. So some higher end campgrounds will offer that as a service. This is again just a pass-through cable connection to the designated TV areas of the camper. Next up here, we have our low point drains. This is going to be how we essentially drain the plumbing of the unit. So everything in between water source and fixture are going to be drained via these two lines. As you see, we have valves, so it's as easy as turning that valve and we are going to drain the water from the unit. Further back, very similar looking valve. That's going to be our freshwater drain. We can see our freshwater holding tank here and our valve there to drain it. So again, just a reminder, anytime the unit is going to be in storage for more than 7 days, it is very important that we do drain all of the water from the unit. Again, what that looks like is going to be the two low point drains here on the underside, the freshwater tank if it's been in use, and of course the water heater with the process that we outlined earlier in the presentation. Next up, we have our refrigerator panel. Not really what we would consider a customer serviceable unit. Biggest thing with not only your refrigerator, but your water heater, your furnace, all of your propane burning appliances, we want to make sure that we are protecting them from the intrusion of mud daubers, flying insects, things like that. They do sell specifically cut screens that are going to fit these louvered openings. We can install those here for you. Once you've done that, you're going to go ahead and insert the top end first. Make sure we put the tabs in the corresponding holes, fully lock it in, and then we turn these a quarter turn. That's going to make sure that's locked in, keep it from going anywhere. I would always recommend that you go kind of back and give these a tug, make sure that they are in fact locked in. I've seen so many people go down the road and lose these because they weren't in fact locked in. In between the top and bottom refrigerator vents, we have a little light. The on-off switch is going to be right there on the fixture itself. And then a little further down, we have our 30 amp, 110 volt connection. What we are going to do here is the plug is only going to be accepted one way. So if we line up the shapes there with the terminals, we can plug in. It is a twist lock connection, which means we're going to give it an 1/8 inch turn to the right there. That's going to lock it in. On your cord, you will have a secondary collar here that's going to screw down on these threads. Keep that connection watertight as well as secure from somebody potentially tripping over it, something like that. My number one recommendation I make for every single unit that I send out the door is going to be the addition of a 30 amp surge protector. Of course, I don't need to tell you that you have a lot going on within the unit electronically. The only way to successfully protect and evaluate the power coming into the unit is going to be with a onboard surge protector. There's a lot of different options on the market. And if you have any questions on which products we recommend or how to use them, feel free to give our parts department a call. We would be more than happy to educate you on not only this, but any other products that we would recommend for using your camper. Next up is going to be our tire pressure and lug nuts. So this unit, the tire pressure is going to be very important on any trailer. You'll find that stamped on the sidewall of the tire in its traditional location. This particular unit's going to ride with a max 50 PSI. That's exactly where we want to run it. If for whatever reason we can't find it on the sidewall of the tire, we forget, we can come up here to the driver's side front corner. This yellow and white sticker is going to indicate our tire pressure rating. As we can see here, that's 50 PSI. And again, that's exactly where we want to run it. Now, our lug nuts have also been torqued down to 100 foot-pounds. That's generally the industry standard. That's part of our pre-delivery inspection. The manufacturer is going to recommend that at the, an initial kind of break-in procedure where you are going to at least be checking and maintaining that level of torque. What they recommend is the initial 10 miles of travel, 25 and 50 miles. They want you to go ahead, pull over, use a click style or use any style of torque wrench to make sure they are maintaining that 100 foot-pounds of torque. They also want you to, at the start of each trip thereon after, they want you to make sure they are maintaining that 100 foot-pounds of torque. So if you don't currently own a torque wrench and you're thinking of taking delivery of one of these campers, it is very important that you look into investing in one. So if we drop down here, we have our gray and black water plumbing as well. Gray for gray water. Gray water is going to be anything that comes from the sink or the shower. And then we have black for black water, which is going to be our toilet, body waste, things like that. Now these valves will be operated during operation, even if we are hooked up to full-time septic. These valves will be, will be in the closed position. We're going to use the monitor panel on the inside to evaluate the levels of our tank and only dump as necessary. Also, it's very important that these valves are never opened at the same time. We want to kind of treat it like a vacuum lock. What we're looking to avoid is any potential backfeeding, cross-contamination between the two systems. What we have here in between our two valves is going to be our bayonet fitting. Now, this is the industry standard, so any sewage hose that you buy, any replacement cap, they're all going to be the same size. What we do is we have 4 prongs along the outside. When we are installing or removing our sewage hose or cap, we're going to put these little keyholes in the halfway position, give that a turn to the right. That's going to go ahead and lock it in, make that connection nice and watertight. Now, the popular kind of chain of events after that is going to be dumping our black water tank first. So we are going to open up that valve, let that fully drain. We'll then go ahead and close that valve, and we will open up our gray valve. That's going to, of course, rinse our sewage hose on the way out with the relatively cleaner of the two waters. Here we have our exterior spray port or outside shower. Nothing too crazy with that. The hose does kind of stow within the kind of interior of the unit and will kind of sit like that going down the road. Now, one thing that you want to be careful of is that this has an on-off switch there on the actual sprayer, so you don't always see water coming from here. What I've seen is that sometimes people will forget, since they're not always seeing water here, that they have these valves in the on position. What they do then is they, of course, feed this back in here to stow it. And if you don't push this all the way in or have it sitting correctly, when you shut the door, it can actually activate that switch and turn it on. This hose storage is a really nice feature, but it does lead directly onto the inside of the camper. So just be aware when operating this that you don't inadvertently flood the inside of your camper with your outside shower. What we see here is going to be a very large pass-through storage compartment. The kind of location of it being behind the axle is awesome for storage. That's going to help alleviate some of the tongue weight up front. As we can see, it's a nice, large, spacious compartment. Use that for all your gear, dead bodies, whatever you prefer to keep in here. I won't tell. So here at the rear, we, of course, not much going on functionality standpoint. We have our taillights, of course, license plates, lights, and our 2 stab jacks, which we already talked about the operation of those. But we do have a little secondary receiver here. It does have a max weight of 150 pounds. It is designed for like a bike rack or a generator rack or something like that. Whatever you store back here, just making sure that we are not exceeding that 150 pound weight limit. Next up, we have our furnace here. Now that is a propane burning appliance with, again, direct spark 12-volt ignition. There is no 110 option or secondary option for that. Biggest thing with this appliance is going to be covering it with a screen, making sure again that those mud daubers, flying insects aren't making their way within the appliance. And then the location of this, kind of being on the front porch area, we'll want to make sure that we don't restrict the flow. So, avoid putting like a lawn chair or anything up against it. It does blow very hot air when it is on, but if we do block the exhaust, we could potentially create a carbon monoxide situation there. Of course, we want to avoid that. And then down below here, we have a propane port. Now this does connect to the propane supply up front. The idea being is that you could run a gas grill, propane fire pit, propane heater from this location. It's going to go ahead and utilize that quick connect fitting. So what we're going to do is slide the collar back, insert the male end fully. Once we are fully seated, we're going to snap that back. It will lock. Then we do have a secondary valve here that we are going to open up to allow that flow of propane. And then, so once we've done that, or once we want to go ahead and disengage, you cannot activate that lock collar when the valve is open. So you need to go ahead and turn off the flow of propane. We can then slide that back and disengage that propane line if we need to. So next up, we are going to demonstrate the Thule Crown awning. This is a manual awning, but it still has a ton of functionality with it. Of course, we have the included crank handle here. Now, this is extendable if you are shorter. It is adjustable. So what we're gonna do is make sure that we insert this properly. And if we go ahead and rotate clockwise here, that's going to go ahead and pull our awning out. Now, we're pretty close to the unit beside us, so I don't know if we're gonna have enough room to fully extend this, but I should be able to at least get it far enough out to demo it fully. And there we have it. So we know it's in the fully extended position. If we tighten it anymore and it kind of loses its slack or rigidity. So that's right where we want to be. And we will pull the crank handle out for now. Stow that in our compartment. So if you want to come over this way, we can extend the legs here. What we're going to do is flip this out like so. We go ahead and swing this down. Here we have an unlock tab. And then we also have a little detent that we can push to extend that further. What we're going to do is we're going to find the clips here on the trailer and we put those up. And if we angle our foot, that will sit in there directly. We can go ahead and lock that down. Now what we're going to want to do is just make sure that we lock this into position. You have a plastic tab here and you are going to fold that in the upward position. Now, you do have to put a fair amount of tension on it, or it does take kind of a little bit of oomph to get that tab over. Don't be afraid to manhandle it. I've never seen one of these come back broken. I don't know what kind of crazy plastic Thule is using, but it is very, very hard to break. So we can go ahead and do the same thing here. I'm not going to fully do it, but you of course have another arm here to extend there and lock in. One thing you do want to be aware of is when we are stowing this back, this front foot needs to be flat against the metal frame here of the awning. That way when we go ahead and push this back, it kind of comes behind this piece of plastic and goes ahead and locks those arms down inside the appliance. Next up, we have this kind of exterior TV area or entertainment area. Idea being is that you can go ahead and remove the TV from the interior of the unit, slide that mount and TV down here. Once we've done so, we can, of course, we have a 110 volt connection as well as a couple USBs. And then here is going to be our HDMI pass-through connection, as well as our cable satellite pass-through connection. So we can go ahead and take advantage of those services here on the exterior of the unit. Of course, we have our speakers as well. Really cool feature that little guy throws in for us to allow us to, again, enjoy that outdoor space with the kind of modern advancements in technology. Last thing before we kind of hop inside, we're going to take a look here at the entry door and steps. First up, you have this really cool lighted grab handle that's going to be switched on the inside. We also have a nice step light here, which will light your way in the dark, of course. Entry steps just fold up and in like so, nothing too crazy. There's no like secondary pin to pin them back. By design, they're not going to, again, like come out or anything for you inadvertently. And then when we want to go ahead and pull them out, it is as easy as flipping them down and out. We also have if you take a look here, we have a door holdback that is magnetic. So what you can do is go ahead and open that door. It's going to stay into that position. We can go ahead and use that if we want to, of course, use the screen door option with the unit. That just about covers it here on the exterior of the little guy. Let's go ahead and hop on the inside and take a look at that. Quite a bit of features going on right inside the door here. First up is we are going to have a GFCI protected outlet. This will have a test and reset button. Generally with these units, all of the receptacles are connected essentially to one GFCI reset point or a couple GFCI reset points. So just be aware that if you do lose functionality to your receptacles, that you probably need to go ahead and reset from this location. Next up here, we just have a light switch there that's going to basically control the accent lighting over the dinette. We do have a dimmer on that switch as well, so we can choose the brightness of that light. Of course, turn it on and off as needed. Then we have a 12-volt charging station. So we have a standard cigarette lighter style receptacle. And then we have our two USB ports. And then below that, we have quite a bit going on. First up, we have our tank monitor system. This is going to give us a real-time readout of the capacity of our gray and freshwater tank. Essentially, the more lights you see here on this scale, the fuller the source we are evaluating is. Of course, we do have a battery monitor as well. Now, this battery monitor is going to work great, but just to keep in mind, it is going to read full or fully charged anytime we are plugged into shore power. So to get an accurate readout of that battery level, we do need to unplug from shore power and go ahead and push this button. Next up here is this switch cluster. First up is going to be our water heater sources. We can run both sources, being electric and LP gas at the same time. That's going to give us the highest recharge rate. Next up in terms of efficiency is going to be our LP gas. And lastly is going to be our electric heating element. Biggest thing with this is going to be if we go ahead and turn this guy on, and especially on propane gas, and we come back a few minutes later and there's a little red light here illuminated, what that means is that our unit has not lit. Essentially, it's went through its lighting cycles, which are, it tries to light 3 times. Say you're out of propane gas, or you have the valve up front, or simply maybe the gas just hasn't made its way to the appliance. Either way, it did not light, and to get it to recycle again, you're going to just flip the switch off, flip it back on. Of course, I would advise you to maybe make sure your service valve is on your tank and that you actually have gas. But as long as you've corrected the issue, generally it will light on the first try of the second cycle. Next up here, we have our water pump switch. We talked about that. We are running the unit on our freshwater system, drawing that water up from the tank to the fixtures to make it usable. Next up, we have our interior light switch here. Now, each one of these ceiling fixtures does have a push button on and off switch, so you can choose which lights come on and off with this main switch. Next up is going to be the porch light. That's going to be the exterior light that we saw underneath the awning here. And then next up is going to be the handle and the step light. We saw that on the exterior. And lastly is going to be our awning lights. That's going to control the LED light switch that runs the length of the awning. Next up here, we have our Jensen stereo. This is going to be Bluetooth capable, AM, FM radio. You can hook HDMI, USB up to it to feed those services directly to the television. So this is wired to the television. You can use it as a receiver to HDMI arc those noises that sound to the speakers in case you have like the air conditioning on and it's loud within the unit. Other than that, this is going to carry its own service manual. you can go ahead and consult that for how to connect to Bluetooth and take advantage of those other features. But I find most people can simply work their way around this. Next up is going to be our fire extinguisher, a very important piece of safety equipment. Before taking the unit out, or every time we take the unit out, we do want to inspect this, make sure that it is holding level, or holding pressure, excuse me, make sure it's within date. We're going to, at that time, check the functionality of our smoke alarms, our carbon monoxide detectors, and our LP leak alarms. Reason being, of course, I don't need to tell you that if those are not working properly, then you do not want to take the unit out. So let's go ahead and make sure that we are testing those every single time we take the unit out. So here in the dinette area of the camper, we are going to take a look at the functionality of the windows. Now, all of the windows within the unit are basically operated the same. They may be different sizes, but conceptually they're the same. What we do is we have these latches around the windowsill there, and if we go ahead and open those up, that will allow us to go ahead and open that window. Now we have two little knobs here on each side to tighten up the struts. And if I were to get up and tighten the other strut up, that would hold that window into the open position. Now, when we're coming back, I want to show you something here. There are a couple of options when it comes to latching it. Now, if we were to go through and put all of these latches into this middle position here, it's going to give us a fingertips worth of opening if we're trying to like vent the unit, take care of condensation issues, something along those lines, we can do so. Of course, it's not meant to be driven that way. If we are going to drive the unit, we need to make sure that we come fully back behind that plastic and latch all of those down further. Now, each window is also going to be equipped with kind of a day-night shade. As you can see here, we again do have that kind of screen door option that's also going to block some of the light, but still let some through. And then if we pull up, we kind of have that privacy shade that's of course going to not let any light or anybody see through. Now we also have two lights here in the corners, little reading lights, but these are going to have a lens that you can press right on the fixture itself to turn that on and off. And then ultimately this whole dinette is going to be able to switch into a bed. You can see it takes advantage of that Lagoon table mount system to allow you to basically position this anywhere you want. Now, when we are making it into the bed, this tabletop is going to essentially disconnect from this base and such, and it will sit here on these slats. You would take the back of the cushions, fill out the space here, again, to make a small secondary sleeping area. Now, to operate this or kind of separate these components, you have little handles here. You have a total of 3 of them, 2 that are controlling the articulation of the tabletop, and then 1 that actually holds that onto the bracket. So the idea being is that we can go ahead and loosen these guys, and these operate kind of like a ratchet. So if you turn that handle and you kind of run out of space, in this case we're hitting the tabletop, we can actually pull out on that handle. That's going to release the gearing to allow us to get another kind of pull of that. And we can continue to do that until we've loosened it enough to, again, potentially remove the tabletop. We'll then go to the next handle down the line. Same thing, loosen that, break it apart, and then lastly, we'll do the same here. We then, again, take our tabletop, set it on the slats, take the rear cushions to fill out the space and make that secondary sleeping area. So here you can see me standing in the shower to give you kind of a feel of space. Just for your information, I'm 5'10". All right, just kidding, I'm 5'9". Actually, I'm 5'8.5". But you can see basically how, you know, somebody of the average size would fit within the unit. But in terms of functionality, we are going to, of course, we see our shower. We have our, you know, we can change the height and position of the sprayer here. We do have our on-off switch there on the light. We also have our vent fan here. So this is going to help, of course, exhaust any moisture within the air. So basically you just crank it up and choose a speed here. This is going to be a reverse only fan. So it is meant, again, as an exhaust for the shower and bathroom. Biggest thing with that is we need to make sure that we remember to close this vent before we go down the road. If not, it may not be there when you get to where you're going. And then what's most important that I want to talk about here is going to be the functionality of the toilet. Now, you read your black water tank capacity directly here at the commode. So in the back corner, slightly hard to get on film, you will see a kind of a plate like this. What this does is it has indicators here to indicate, you know, 3/4 full, completely full, and this particular monitor runs on AA batteries, so it will also let you know if the batteries need to be changed. Now, when we go to operate it, which again, this is really hard to capture on film, so you're just gonna have to take my word for it. We have a 3-way switch here on the actual appliance. Of course, further forward, the switch when it's positioned closer to the wall is going to be off. And then if we slide that one position forward, which essentially would be the middle position of that switch, that's going to be the test button. So that's just going to illuminate all 3 of these lights to let you know that they are all in fact working as it should. And then if we come fully towards me, which is one more click over, that's going to be actually in monitoring mode. Now, this isn't something that you have to like leave on all the time. I would just, again, kind of recommend maybe checking it a few times a day, checking it after you use the restroom kind of thing, to keep those batteries operating in, keep them operating longer. Now, one thing I do want to mention is like if we're storing the unit for a long time, not a bad idea to remove those batteries from the appliance, maybe throw them in a drawer. Just for the simple fact that when the unit's in storage, we do not want to see them corrode or damage the monitor in any way. Right outside the restroom here, we have our smoke alarm. Nothing too crazy about this. Just like any other residential smoke alarm, it's going to run on a 9-volt battery. My recommendation is pick up a spare 9-volt battery, keep it with the unit. If this were to start indicating a low battery on a camping trip, of course, the thing you don't want to do is remove that battery. So make sure you have a spare one. Make sure we're testing that every single time we take the unit out, making sure it's in good working order. So next up is going to be our solar charge controller. Now this unit's equipped with a solar panel on the roof. Biggest thing with that is that this is kind of an always on, or it's always going to take in energy as needed. It's not really, as a consumer, something that you have to worry about. There's no like on off switch or anything like that. The charge controller is only going to take in energy when the battery needs it, and when it's full, it's going to know to cut that off. When we look here at the unit, it's going to indicate battery voltage. So 13.7 is where our battery is sitting. A lot of that's because we're plugged into shore power. So when we are plugged into shore power, I would expect to see it at this level. And then if we go ahead and push this button, we're going to see how many amps we're taking in via solar currently. You can see it's 0, so we're inside the shop. Wouldn't expect anything more. And then amp hours here are going to indicate what our amp hour rating is for our battery capacity at that time. And then here we have some different indicators on the not only the level of our battery or battery condition, but also our charging status here. Dropping down here, we have our Dometic thermostat. If we go ahead and push that into the on position, the first thing it's going to want us to do is choose a fan speed. Just like your thermostat at home, if we choose either low or high, that fan is going to continue to run even if it has in fact reached our thermostatic temperature. Now, to keep that kind of corresponding with that thermostat, we're going to want to make sure that we put that fan speed in auto. We're going to hit that mode button one time. That's going to again take us into the air conditioner thermostat. We can see we're in cool, which is conditioned air. Our fan speed, is auto, and our thermostat is set to 67 degrees. We can change our temperature with the up or down arrows here. That's pretty straightforward. If we hit that mode button one more time, that's going to take us into our furnace mode. So once the air conditioner kind of realizes what we're doing or what we're asking of the appliance, it's going to kick down. We'll hear that blower motor kick on for the furnace almost immediately. 16 seconds after that, it ignites. By that 30-second mark, you are feeling it kind of produce noticeable heat. Now, per the manufacturer of the furnace, if it were to, say, set off the smoke alarm within the first 15 minutes of operation, that's completely acceptable from the appliance. When you start the furnace in this camper or any camper, it's kind of like starting the furnace in your house the first time for the year, but it's like doing that every single time. So it just needs to burn off that excess dust, get that efficiency rating up. If it continues, of course, to set off your smoke alarm with past that first 15 minutes of operation, maybe we need to start looking into a potential issue with the appliance. Next up here is going to be, of course, the main kitchen area. Ton of cabinetry, ton of storage. As you're going to find out, storage in these units is pretty much the most important thing. So I'm not going to spend too much time, but we can see here's our upward cabinet. You're going to probably find most of your soft goods, unit paperwork, those type of things here in this top cabinet. We do have a standard high point microwave here. This is a 110 appliance. There is a turntable in here. A lot of people like to remove that turntable for travel. I've never seen one break, but if you don't want it kind of rattling around in there, you might want to do that. Coming down here, we can see our countertop extender. Not a ton of counter space in this unit, but having this sink cover really helps if we're wanting to like prep a meal here. We do have a little bit of space for that. If we go ahead and remove that, we can take a look here at our nice stainless steel sink. We do have that pull down sprayer with multiple spray modes there on the fixture. If we kind of switch over to the cooktop here, nice glass cooktop. We go ahead and open that up. It does lock in that upwards position. We can see a nice, again, gas stove. Does have a sparker igniter in between the two burners there. Idea being is that you would switch the light here, hold that down until we see an actual flame there at the burner. There we go. I wasn't exactly sure if I had left the propane on the unit, but there we go. No oven in this unit, so just this cooktop, because who really wants to cook teeny tiny muffins in their camper? But next up, we have, again, a little bit more storage. Silverware drawer there. Again, I'm not going to spend too terribly much on these, but just to give you a quick look of how much storage this unit, in fact, has. Kind of switching gears here to the refrigerator. Dometic refrigerator here. Now, this is a dual source refrigerator, meaning it's going to have, again, just like the water heater, a 110 electric heat option, electric cooling option, and then a gas option as well. So when we turn the appliance on, we're going to see it go through a boot up procedure, indicating that we are, again, on. Your most popular option is going to be this auto feature here. So with this gas button in the depressed position, that's going to put us in that auto setting. What that means is, of course, by default, it's going to use 110 volt electricity if that's available. And then if that gets interrupted, we pack up shop, or, power outage, something like that, it's going to automatically light on gas and run on gas. Now, if we want to purposely put it on gas, like say we're going down the road or something like that, we will push or depress that button. There's not going to be any indicators here or lights indicating that you are running on gas. It is strictly the position of the switch. Now, if it does have any issues kind of lighting on gas, it is going to illuminate this check light, which tells you that it failed to light on gas. It went through its lighting cycle. It's kind of same thing with the water heater. In the event that happens, we're just going to depress the switch and give it another shot at lighting. Now, the orifice or the burner of the refrigerator is very small, so it can take a few tries to actually get that gas to the appliance, and so it will light. So if that happens, if maybe you've pushed this 2 or 3 times, that can happen. So it aids to maybe kick on the furnace for a few minutes, maybe light a burner, things like that, to aid in getting gas closer to the appliance. So coming down here, we can see we have a nice large storage drawer there. This particular one's gonna utilize that push button lock. So once we put that in, we just push that button in, and that's going to go ahead and lock it down. And then below that, we have our WIFCO auto detect converter box. What that means is that if you choose to upgrade that battery to a lithium battery, there's not anything that you have to do to adjust the charge rate of the converter. It's going to automatically detect that battery and then charge it at that new charge rate of about 14.4 volts. And then when we look further into the appliance here, we have our 12 volt appliances here. They're going to utilize a automotive blade style fuse. Of course, not a bad idea to pick up a variety pack of fuses, keep them with the unit in the event you need to change one of those on the road. And then to the left of that, we have our standard 110 light switch style breakers. Those are going to, of course, control our 110 appliances. In terms of functionality, they're labeled here on the left side of the unit. Now, if at any point one of these were to need to be changed, there's a little red light next to each one of your 12 volt fuses that are going to indicate which one is having a problem. Of course, we only see that light if there is actually an issue. Here we are in the bed area. Just wanted to demonstrate that, again, this TV can be removed for if you were to want to take it outside. It does just kind of sit on that bracket, same bracket that we had on the exterior of the camper as well. Now, this TV is a 12 volt TV. Now, if at any point you maybe want a bigger TV or a 110 TV, back behind the TV, you're going to find a 110 outlet, so you can go ahead and take advantage of that if you need to. Also back here, we have a cigarette lighter style receptacle to feed 12 volt appliances back here. And we also have a couple USBs here as well. Here, lastly, on the other side of the bed, we're just going to find two more of those reading lights. Again, to turn those on and off is just going to be a press there on the lens. Next up here, we have our 12 volt RV carbon monoxide and gas alarm, or propane gas alarm. So this is wired into the 12 volt section of the camper. There's no battery that we have to worry about changing. Now, we do want to make sure we are testing this every single time we take the unit out. What that means is we have a little push button here. We're going to push that. It will give us a loud set of beeps indicating that it is in good working order. And that's it. Simple. So again, make sure that we are testing all of our safety equipment before we go ahead and take the unit down the road. Very important. All right, y'all, that just about covers it here of the walkthrough on the 2024 Little Guy by XTreme Outdoors. Thank you so much for following us along. If you do have any questions, just be sure to reach out there in the comments below. We do appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Have a great day.